My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence, that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft.
It is September 18, 2025. It's 6:26 a.m. And this is documentation of stalking by the City of Ontario, using specifically the Ontario International Airport, which is engaged in terrorism, domestic terrorism, criminal surveillance, and what is also psychological torture, harassment, and they engage in the conspiracy to commit murder while targeting me, and also engage in the obstruction of justice tactic of engaging in more stalking and harassment in an obvious manner, while keeping the evidence about it under surveillance. That is, the more that I document planes clearly deviating from takeoffs, also which are maintained on the Ontario International website, the more that planes engage in that deviated conduct, flying over particularly third-party group stalker Ceres Regis Group, downtown Ontario luxury apartments at 320 North Euclid Avenue. Doing so all night long, by the way. As I'm getting up at 6 a.m., I'm publishing flight after flight after flight after flight after flight right now, hovering over that apartment building. This is what the entity was doing, however, at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's not published on the website. 4, 5, and doing right now, like I'm documenting. I'm going to go through these times. This is that which is American Airlines, for example, has a flight published at 6 a.m. 6:10 a.m. At the same exact time, a plane is already hovering from 320 North Euclid Avenue over the roof. That's not the American Airlines flight. Okay, and American Airlines taking off, again, like every pilot taking off from any airport, is going to serve to prosecute the terrorist L&D WAPNER, that entire panel of terrorists that call themselves the Airport Authority, the City of Ontario's Ontario Authority, Board of Authority, the Board of Airport Authority. And also the demons that are flying these commercial airline planes. And as I've also documented, the City of Ontario is engaging in the same terrorism and stalking using smaller planes, sharing in the same pattern of conduct. And that's what the Ontario Police Department does with helicopters stalking me as well. What the Ontario International Airport is doing is serving to prosecute the entire entity and disband the same agency that is gang stalking while every plane is crossing path. And the times I'm going to publish right now, and I took images of it. While I am publishing it, the entity also engaged in what is flight at 6:26 a.m. and also 6:20 a.m. So I want to include those two. That's when the entity is engaged in so much stalking with planes over the apartment building, while I am uploading it onto the Google Drive, and they're engaging in another flight and another flight and another flight, and I didn't stop what I was doing on the internet to catch a picture of it, okay? But these are the flights that I'm capturing, and this is, again, out of conformity of what the Ontario International Airport, that maintains an airport business to cover what is actually criminal surveillance and furtherance of murder at that. So it is Title 18 federal stalking, and it is also harassment, domestic terrorism, psychological torture, and that which is committed in order to accomplish murder, which the City of Ontario is routinely engaging in with these psychopaths that are pacing all around, and doing so molesting with engineer light, just like I've already captured in video. 6:29 a.m. The entity is stalking, engaging in a U-turn over what is Euclid Avenue, with the people of the state at the red light, stalking in the path with light. You know what they're doing when they're driving by me? They're molesting me with impossible light. This is the entity sharing in the sex offense. This is the entity engaging with that criminal entity, the City of Ontario, that are one with the people. And they're doing so with impunity because they're listening to me document. They're keeping my documentation, my devices under surveillance. And that's going toward the psychopaths, the terrorists that are stalking using commercial planes. And that is why gang stalking pilots are going to federal prison. Gang stalking pilots of the Ontario Police Department, gang stalking pilots of each and every gang stalking airline. They're going to federal prison. All right, that's P.O.C. That's 6:30 a.m. engaging in a U-turn, flying over, which I've captured that in video so many times. The entity engages in repeating that as well. That's also not a part of arrivals and departures published on the Ontario International website. Also, the Ontario International website does not reflect flights occurring every 15 to 25 seconds. That's also not how an airport is ran with regard to the careful, time-consuming flights where they necessarily need space, both when they're taking off and when they're landing. The entity is terrorizing and harassing me. That's why they're flying over the apartment building also, and that's also why I'm being molested with light. That's also why this is where the documented fake sun is rising as well. All right, this is P.O.C. And this is 415 North Euclid Avenue, where in relevant position, the downtown Ontario luxury apartments, which is gang stalking me. And everybody living in that apartment complex is gang stalking, and everybody on the roads and the highways and every other establishment is gang stalking. That's why the entity's not flying over the Ontario Town Square. Southwest Airlines isn't hovering over the Ontario Museum of History and Arts. The entity isn't flying over the parking lot of the downtown Ontario in alignment with me. They're maintaining presence south of my person. Okay, 6:31 a.m. The entity maintaining another flight over the parking lot. You can hear it. P.O.C. And this is the psychopathic conduct that I'm documenting as of 6 a.m. So I'm going to recite those times. And what they're engaging in is monitoring right now criminal conduct with the entity that is monitoring on my devices. Remember, noise, light, and presence is affecting devices that they are keeping under surveillance. And this is speaking to what is necessarily informing legislation, because the murderer will continuously seek to hunt down and terrorize and stalk and torture an American citizen like they're doing while they're being documented at the same time, using planes and helicopters to do so. That's the City of Ontario. The removal of Paul Leon, the removal of Alan D. WAPNER, Mike LORENZ, Michael GERKEN. Every level of government in Ontario is engaged in gang stalking, and so is the state of California. All right, so I want to document this 6 a.m. Let me see. This is exactly what I was documenting last night, and this is exactly what is underway all night long, 3, 4, 5 o'clock, and I'm waking up around 6:09 a.m. I'm capturing images of stalking, because that's what it is in this specific environment. That's what it is with this level of frequency. That's what it is with this that which is not published on the Ontario International website either. The people of the state are stalking on the roads and the highways, and the entity is stalking in the sky space. 6:09 a.m. You'll see the entity stalking in planes, commercial plane, flight west over Euclid Avenue, hovering and doing so with the people of the state that are maintaining activity creation. These are demons who are monitoring, and they're all stalking together while they're monitoring. It's criminal activity by the entity that's together targeting an American citizen. At, again, 6:16 a.m., flight west over Euclid Avenue, hovering over the same apartment complex. At 6:17 a.m. and 32 seconds, hovering again over the same apartment complex. At 6:19 and 13 seconds, again, hovering over the same apartment complex, 320 North Euclid Avenue. That is the downtown Ontario luxury apartments. And this is what the entity is doing everywhere that I'm located, hovering over the Woodside Senior Apartments, hovering over the 280 North Lemon Apartments when I'm at the Ontario Town Square, when I'm at the OVITT Family Community Library. Let's see. This is again at 6:33 a.m. The entity hovering west over the same apartment complex. It is, let's see, 6:23 and 21 seconds, hovering again over the same apartment complex, and you'll see them engaging in what is making a U-turn. They fly in alignment with where my position, where my body is positioned, stalking in the path and making a U-turn to go in the opposite direction, as though departures from American Airlines departing from the airport is engaging in what is publishing donuts that they're going to conduct on Euclid Avenue. That's the entity stalking in the path, pacing. That's the demonic pacing, doing so with the people of the state that are pacing. And as I'm documenting, 6:20 a.m. while I was in the midst of uploading images, and again at 6:26 a.m. And what you're listening to, 6:34 a.m. is right now, and the entity is doing so. I want to share what I published, which is even different from what was published last night. Regarding what the terrorist itself, the Ontario International Airport, is sharing about what is arriving and departing from the airport. And it is nothing remotely similar to what the airport is engaging in. So this is, again, the cover for terrorism, the business of the airport, and what the airport is actually doing, which is what I'm documenting, which is stalking me. All right. 7:45 a.m. Hold on. Is published for Delta Airlines September 17th and 8 a.m. And the entity engaged in much more than that, like I documented yesterday. But 6:40 a.m. It's currently 6:35 a.m. And so the earliest flight today, September 18th, is for the Ontario International Airport regarding departures is at 6:40 a.m. That's Southwest Airlines, flight number WN1169 going towards Chicago Midway. And that is no flight that's going to include flight over the Ontario downtown luxury apartments. And it needs to be clear, the flights that I'm capturing, the flights that the entity is engaging in, including while I'm documenting right now, is pursuant to criminal monitoring. It's the same targeting that the Ontario Police Department engage in on a regular basis, doing so in the specific environment, which is also stalking me, which is terrorism, and the entity is engaged in this while they're keeping the evidence that I'm documenting while I'm uploading it, and they engage in more and more of it. That's the entity that intends to psychologically torture while engaged in the criminal conduct of stalking me in planes in furtherance of the conspiracy to commit murder. This is what the entity is doing in concert. Every demon that's crossing path, remember, each and every one of them are engaging in a sex offense, molesting me with impossible light activity. And the planes are stalking pursuant to what is amplified audible activity. And they're doing so outside of what the airport is even publishing about its business. And that's because it is engaging in what is terrorism, surveillance, and the business of the airport is supposed to be the cover for that. And all you have to do is pay attention, just like all you have to do is pay attention to the fake sun to see that police departments are stalking an American citizen and not engage in law enforcement. To see that a population is stalking a citizen, one specific person, and not engaged in what is every normal everyday living. And it's very obvious, okay? These are demons that are engaging in that, and this is impunity, and it's another day of terrorism by the state of California, and it's relevant to those that are going to be standing in court, including the state of California itself. The United States government is going to be prosecuted for terrorism, period, and there are bodies, names, identities that are going to be before federal courts, and they're going to be prosecuted for the ongoing ceaseless gang stalking, trying to engage in psychological torture, trying to deter me from being a witness in federal court pertaining to the conspiracy to murder me, and they're going to be prosecuted for that, and it's relevant to civil damages as well. Okay, I want to be clear, the earliest flight is 6:40 and it's 6:37 a.m. and I'm documenting, and they're engaging in real-time, ongoing, ceaseless stalking, targeting by that airport. 7:23 arrivals by, the first one is not until 7:23 a.m. by Frontier Airlines, and Frontier Airlines flight number F91261 going to Denver, arriving from Denver at Terminal 2. And I'm documenting at 320 North Euclid Avenue, the downtown Ontario luxury apartments, which is the gang stalker Saris Regis group that is acting with impunity, acting in furtherance of murder, facilitating targeting with the people of the state and every corrupt business beyond just the Ontario downtown luxury apartments. And they're doing so with the Ontario Police Department. Okay, as you will see, while the kidnappers of the Ontario Police, the stalkers of the Ontario Police, are gang stalking with the Ontario International Airport in a well, thousands of videos, and they're going to federal prison. The entities engaged in the co-conspiracy. The conspiracy to stalk, the conspiracy to murder, the conspiracy to steal from and get away from, the conspiracy to engage in targeting and furtherance of the effort to criminally defame. And there is nothing that's going to falsely depict the character of an American citizen that is proving that the airport is full of demons that are stalking them in planes. The police department is full of demons that are stalking them using their county-issued vehicles and the helicopters. There is nothing that's going to reflect poorly on a demon-possessed population that's stalking, and amongst things such as impossible light activity and under a fake sun, and doing so even more of it while they keep the evidence of their mental illness and their criminal activity under surveillance. And that's the misinformed tactic of psychological torture. The more that you experience it, and what I'm doing, documenting it, the more they engage in it, which is more evidence to me proving that they're targeting. Okay, it is currently, by the way, 6:39 a.m. This is evidence against the same agency that's going to be disbanded while the Ontario International Airport is gang stalking. This is what they're doing on video when you see the Ontario Police Department in my presence engaging in what is federal group stalking and monitoring, all the malicious iterations of that criminal pattern of conduct. The Ontario Police is gang stalking right now by stalking at a red light. The entity controls the lights, is engaged in what is gang stalking with the rest of the people of the state, surrounding in the perimeter, monitoring while I'm capturing plane after plane after plane after plane after plane after plane over the Ontario downtown luxury apartments at 320 North Euclid Avenue. All right, and I want to be clear what I documented last night. While today the earliest flight is 6:40 a.m., the entity is maintaining what I captured and screenshot regarding the disclosures of the Ontario International Airport, a terrorist. It is sharing what are departures, none overnight. 11:12 p.m. is the latest, JetBlue, which is flight number B60454, New York City, gate 203. But I'm experiencing at 3, 4, and 5 o'clock in the morning, ongoing ceaseless flight with the people that you hear, ongoing heavy traffic all night long, because the demon-possessed are never sleeping when the target individual is outside. They're keeping me under surveillance, okay? And the entity is doing so. Again, it's currently 6:40 a.m. The entity is engaged in the same conduct it's been doing since 3 a.m., hovering over the downtown Ontario luxury apartments. 5:10 a.m. United Airlines is published on the website, but the entity has been headed toward Denver, and no pilot takeoff, which is part of the prosecution, proving what the takeoff entails, and it will include none of the stalking conduct that the Ontario International Airport is proven to be engaged in, as I document it. And that is conclusive factual evidence that's not nuanced, and it's not ambiguous, and it's not subject to what is this person's opinion and that person's opinion. The entity is engaged in targeting, including in the specific environment, and they're going to be prosecuted for that. And it's also relevant to the impunity and the malice and the psychopathic obsession while they continuously engage in it, like now at 6:41 a.m., 6:40 a.m., while they're proven to be targeting, meaning while they're keeping the evidence during an ongoing investigation and a prosecution that they anticipate, because they're engaged in surveillance, keeping it under surveillance. That's speaking to the psychopaths that commit murder using planes, that engage in acts of terrorism unbeknownst to American citizens, and they are treated and discussed at the outset as accidents that have to be discussed in hearings, on the news, and their murders, their sacrifices. That's why demons are stalking in commercial planes. That's what the Ontario International Airport website is showing, and that's what the Ontario International Airport is engaged in: terrorism, not maintaining an airport, the business of an airport, P.O.C. All right. What is published online is again 5:10 a.m. and then 6 a.m. United Airlines, Alaska Airlines, Delta Airlines, Frontier Airlines flights at 6 a.m. All of them at 6 a.m. at the same time. And this is from flight number UA2647 going to San Francisco, United Airlines. Alaska Airlines, flight number AS1091, Seattle. That's the destination, going to Seattle. Delta Airlines at 6 a.m. Flight DL4042. going to Seattle as well. Delta Airlines flight number DL2708 going to Salt Lake City. And 6 a.m. is Frontier Airlines flight F92232 going to Las Vegas. And these are respectively Las Vegas going from gate 210, Salt Lake City going to gate 208, Seattle, both Delta Airline flights going to Seattle, gates 206 and 207, and United Airlines going to San Francisco, gate 204, and the Denver, Colorado of United Airlines which is gate 201. The entity is maintaining ongoing flight over me that I'm documenting at 6:09, and the entity is engaging in this ongoing conduct as I wake up and begin taking pictures. And they've been engaged in this heavy flight conduct over that apartment building, which is south of my person, not engaging in flights anywhere north of my person, like what they're doing when I'm at Starbucks and they're hovering over the UNICARE community, they're hovering over the ARCO, over the Chevron. They're not doing that because I'm not in alignment with Starbucks, where they remain south of my person, stalking me north of Euclid Avenue. That's why they're engaged in flight, serial flight over the downtown Ontario luxury apartments, recognizing targeting. That's also why they're not flying much more south, farther away from me, flying over the Ontario downtown, the Ontario town square, or flying over Holt and Euclid Avenue. Okay, the entity's engaging what is stalking me, getting as close as they can, what is south of my person. And that's also where I'm showing you the entity's keeping the fake sun over me, keeping engineer light molestation by the sex offenders who are demon-possessed terrorists. And that entire entity is going to be prosecuted for the perpetual sex offense upon the conspiracy to commit murder of the one that they are together as a population, as a corrupt public entity, stalking, gang stalking, which is the organized crime of the demon-possessed in the state of California. All right? It is currently 6:44 a.m. This is P.O.C. This is published on the website. It's going up online right now. And the Ontario International Airport, the Ontario Police, the people of the state are monitoring. The ARCO Wi-Fi website is where they're engaged in surveillance, federal stalking. Surveillance cameras will show you a large truck at ARCO. They're monitoring. They're creating light activity. They're in the parking lot. The people of the state are stalking at the gas stalls. They're monitoring as a corrupt business, and with the people of the state that are on the roads and the highways. This is P.O.C. on what is, again, Thursday, September 18, 2025 at 6:44.
This is 636 West Holt. This is number 5, maintaining ongoing noise in the bathroom to monitor me. The entire grocery store, which is the entire Ontario Village, which is the same city of Ontario, engaged in the sex offensive monitoring inside of a so-called family markets, Stater Brothers. The fake sun is already documented, the P.O.C. of engineer light, including on the ceiling inside where these demons are pacing, and they're monitoring me in the bathroom, keeping noise inside is monitored while they're pacing all around. This is psychopathic and predatory, very demented, sexually motivated, criminal activity. This is relevant to the illegitimate interest in your genitalia, in your private activity, outside and even beyond criminal surveillance, sexually motivated surveillance at that. This is 8:26 a.m. inside of the
Stalking in the bathroom. the elements monitoring, and the fake sun is right over the Stater Brothers. Remember, the entity's keeping the fake sun over the ARCO gas station where I'm documenting and the Ontario police are stalking while I'm uploading that podcast, and the demons and the homosexuals of the Ontario Veterinary Hospital right there at the CHEVRON and the ARCO where the entity's stalking with the Ontario National Airport, that terrorists maintaining plane activity and then engaging with maintaining helicopter activity. The entity is during the same time maintaining that specific location of that fake sun. That's just the other day. The entity's keeping the fake sun over the economy and over outside of my hotel room window at the American Inn. And that's from 7 to 11 a.m. The entity has a fake sun following me. While you are also following physically into a bathroom based on the obsession and the sexually perverted and demented pattern of also being very much interested as a whole entity of sex offenders in my genitalia and what I'm doing inside of a private space. Coming into the bathroom and relieving yourself is activity creation. And engaging in what is walking around as light activity, audible activity, and ongoing concerted contact with a bunch of sex offenders who are monitoring all communication devices and are sharing corporate knowledge about my genitalia and everything going on, including my documentation, which is also relevant to the prosecution of the sex offender. The City of Ontario, Stater Brothers Markets, every employee, including Kia, that are gang stalking. This is P.O.C. It's 8:31 a.m. Amplified audible activity with regard to monitoring my genitalia. Alright, while my legs are spread apart, while engaged in what is private activity, monitoring my genitalia, simultaneity to that, to touching that area, the amplified noise occurs. Those are sex offenders that are in between my legs and keeping that under surveillance. That's a sex and a very demented one, and that's the whole population. That's the demon stalking with the airport, with the police department, with the fire department, the population, the whole neighborhood stalking to and fro everywhere I'm going under the fake sun. Doing so on surveillance cameras at a grocery store, on surveillance cameras in the parking lot. They are, again, 8:32 a.m. engaging in what is documenting themselves as sex offenders that I'm going to prosecute. That's a sex offender in the male restroom to be in the path as a demon, monitoring my vagina and maintaining amplified noise while my vagina is the subject of interest in this bathroom stall. Okay, the noise occurring with simultaneity to my activity concerning my genitalia. 8:32 a.m. They're walking out of the hallway. Surveillance cameras speaking to everything that they're doing pursuant to demons' knowledge of what I'm doing concerning my genitalia in particular. Stater Brothers is a sex offender. And this isn't new, I've documented it before. And it's so funny, people coming from their homes early in the morning to come use the bathroom inside of the bathroom stall at the grocery store. When I have my home, I never use the bathroom at the grocery store. These are demons that, again, they also don't read. They sit in the library stalking all day long to help the employees that are engaged in surveillance as the City of Ontario. The entity's doing so where I'm showing you engineer light on the wall, engineer light on the floor, on the ceiling, and a fake sun that remains over the venue, whatever venue it is, whatever location, while they're all engaged in surveillance with the government that's following incessantly in planes and helicopters, police, fire, and ambulances. And they're demons that are violent sex offenders. This is the perpetual sex offense that's underway at the so-called family markets. Okay, family has a term of art amongst the demon-possessed population. They are a family of sexually perverted psychopaths. The family engages in pedophilia. The family engages in sexual violence as an entity, as a population. Okay, and this is sexual violence that you need to know the demon-possessed are gratified by, and you don't even know that they're engaging in it against you. And they know that I'm documenting it, and these sex offenders still engaging in it. That's speaking to the violence that they commit against people that don't know, or also they may know, may find out, and they're unsuspecting, and they fall victim to being targeted in ways that are not exposed because of this targeting system underway. And it's not a random murder. It's not a random rape. It's not a random kidnapping. All right, 8:34 a.m. This is bathroom monitoring at Stater Brothers Markets on Hope Boulevard at San Antonio. Remember, I'm documenting the Ontario police engaged in harassment at the Starbucks at 706 West Hope. That was the day after they committed kidnapping, July 5th, 2025. The entity's keeping the fake sun after 9 a.m. I'm documenting the fake sunset at this same location where the Starbucks is. It's across the street, it's the same location after 7 p.m., but it's over me at 8 in the morning. And I captured that. The entity is going to federal, they're surrounded at all angles with regard to what is targeting and also the ways in which you're going to prosecute for the sexual violence inherent to gang stalking as a whole population, as a business, as a government entity. P.O.C. That's audible activity while a sex offense is being executed, the ongoing sound of amplified beeping. So you need to understand the terrorists, the Ontario International Airport, they're sex offenders. Each airline is engaged in bathroom monitoring. They're sex offenders stalking. The entity is a police department that's stalking everywhere, as they've demonstrated themselves as being engaged in stalking, both while they're using police vehicles and helicopters, and they're monitoring my vagina. They're being disbanded as sex offenders as well, and so is the population. They're pacing all around in a parking lot together pursuant to monitoring one person, that is myself, inside of a bathroom. That's a private space. That is, again, where the government has no legitimate interest and what is speaking to what is nothing other than a sex offender, going well beyond what is criminal surveillance, which is unlawful in the first instance. And they're all pacing. That's what you're looking at, federal government, under the fake sun from an aerial view. The vehicles and the bodies walking around in the parking lot on hold in San Antonio, all the houses in relevant position. Remember the fake sun rising when I'm at the San Antonio Coin Laundromat at the opposite angle of this same Ontario Village shopping center. And I've also documented the sunset. The entity is surrounded with a body of evidence that they're monitoring my vagina. And as I flush the toilet, the entity that's amplifying noise, it's the same volume, if not louder, than the toilet inside of this bathroom stall as I use it. That is pursuant to what is monitoring. Monitoring is pursuant to what is surveillance. And why are you engaging in surveillance in a bathroom other than the fact that you are a predator? You're a pervert and you are a sex offender by definition. Okay, it's 8:37 a.m. and the entity that's documented by license plate, it is documenting terrorists that molest me with impossible light, that are engaged in molestation as a population while a fake sun remains over me, and they're stalking me all day long, and they're engaging in the perpetual sex offense as an entity while engaging in surveillance in bathrooms. It is 8:37 a.m. P.O.C. All right, the civil and criminal prosecution of the government, of the people of the state, including Stater Brothers Markets, which I believe is headquartered in San Bernardino, California. San Bernardino, California is a gang stalker. The entity is engaged in what is an inhumane level of violation of privacy. You're talking about by pure numerosity, the quantity, all right, the incalculable harms inherent to violence of the population, keeping you under surveillance, walking out of the public restroom and everybody knows what's going on in the bathroom concerning you. And then there's psychopaths because it's public corruption and it's an unspoken ongoing system and you're not supposed to know, but you do know, and so do I. And you're looking at mentally ill psychopaths and violent sex offenders who conduct themselves outwardly like they don't know. But the engineer light, the fake sun, the stalking by the state, the stalking by the people of the state when they're shooting you with engineer light, and the engineer light is plastered above their head while they're paying for their groceries in the grocery store, and the multiple shadows all in other words, the engineer light, the specific environment is pregnant with letting you know that they're all engaged in what is knowledge about what's going on between your legs in a bathroom. And no person should, nobody except for those that you invite in the bathroom with you, those that you invite between your legs. And it's not the people of the state. All right, it's not the business Stater Brothers. It's not this Ontario Police Department. And this is an inhumane, sexually violent pattern of conduct, and you're going to prosecute for that. Okay, they're going to be prosecuted for monitoring my vagina. This is P.O.C. and everybody out here knows exactly what's going on and that if they're being documented. This is a Stater Brothers located at, I'm going to get the fake sun and I'm going to get also crossing path as I walk outside of the restroom. Bye, Kia. Have a good day. She's monitoring, all right? And that's a homosexual monitoring another woman's vagina and being obsessed. That's why you're monitoring every move that I make. And these are, again, predators that are engaging in sexual violence, both as quote-unquote moms and dads, while you're engaging in conduct which is directly conflicting with the way that you present yourself in everyday life, not only as a criminal, but also, for example, as a homosexual woman that's stalking another woman and obsessed with her vagina, obsessed with her bodily fluids, obsessed with everything that she's doing, and that's why you're stalking and surveilling in a bathroom, by the way. Anyway, it's currently 8:42 a.m. I'm going to go ahead and get the fake sun. Engineer light is underneath the covered structure. Pulling up as I use my phone, sex offender EG32F94. right here, and the fake sun is right here over me at the entrance of the Stater Brothers Markets. That's engaged in bathroom monitoring. Engineer light is underneath the covered structure. That's, again, speaking to what is the reality of everything you're looking at. The fake sun is not, it's necessarily the fake sun because the fake sun is still here after 7 p.m. through the windows of the Starbucks, which is of this same venue after 7 p.m. That's what I documented on June 3rd, 2025. So this is an entity that's engaged in what is the pattern of conduct, and that's, again, doing so pursuant to the documented engagement in bathroom monitoring in a private space, a bathroom. All right, the entity is maintaining engineer light, which I'm capturing images of while they're walking around, just like inside of the OVITT Family Community Library. And you're walking around and you're seeing your shadow appearing on the wall. That's pursuant to demons that are monitoring while noise is maintained in the bathroom, monitoring my vagina pursuant to the same time that I'm engaged in activity concerning my vagina, and sex offenders are satiated while they act as a population. And it's adding to the business by that underway while they're profiting off of demon sex offenders. Oh, she's butt naked. We're going to go inside and engineer light monitoring, and doing so pursuant to joint knowledge. That's the inhumane sex offense of the perpetual sex offense underway by the government and the population. 9HKB 918, and it is 8:43 a.m. Again, Stater Brothers is located inside of the Ontario Village Shopping Plaza. The fake sunrise and sunset documented. 7AQE 900. 46756X3, 9JGM195, 9BXX403, 6PLY058, using the, that's Frontier Communications, monitoring my vagina, and a sex offender operating that commercial vehicle. The sound of that beeping is not going to be heard inside of the bathroom, but that's what you were listening to. Frontier is a violent sex offender. They're monitoring American citizens, and that company is a sex offender. License 7MGB081, and Frontier Communications license plate. That's the criminal activity of the use of not only police trucks, fire trucks, and ambulances, and planes and helicopters, for example. This is a criminal use. You're not constitutionally free to engage in monitoring, and that's a prosecution. And that's speaking to what is public corruption. License 40632R3, Frontier Communications, criminally using a commercial means of the perpetual sex offense and facilitating. Frontier is engaged in helping everybody else engage and commit a sex offense in the shoes of the government. Frontiers isn't a private company. It's a third party. All right, that's P.O.C. And the sound of that beeping was amplified inside of the bathroom. The entrance door is being open is not going to serve for that audible noise. It's demonic. And neither is the sun going to create engineer light fanning backwards behind these demons. It's engineer light. They're demons engaged in monitoring, and that's what they're doing while they know altogether my vagina is exposed in what I'm doing. License 9KUW835 is a sex offender covered in tattoos, and the government is engaged in what is criminal conduct, sexual violence with these demons that are engaging in that conduct, both with criminal records existing and those predators that are not yet with criminal records that they need to have, while they're not also different in character, by the way. License 9BXX403, 9CXD006. Not different. So the illusion of a criminal record, oh, you're not a sex offender, you're not. No, that's, again, the sex offender is the police department, and they're supposed to be the ones that are putting sex offenders away. They are the sex offender. Okay? 9CPV194, 8HDK252, 5YJF645, 8PWC560. 8ZMM765. And it's not just Stater Brothers that's monitoring, that's engaging the P.O.C. This is just where I'm at, and it's giving you context, because right across the street at this same location, with regard to a sun, it's the same location. And the fake sun is here, aimed perfectly, while the demons inside of the Starbucks at 706 West Holt are pacing and engineer light while the fake sun's in perfect alignment with me at the same location inside of that Starbucks after 7 p.m. 6WIN188, 9TUH922. That's already sitting on the record. It's not the sun over me while a bunch of sex offenders are obsessed with my vagina. Asian men, 8GXF903. White men, 90579S3. This is 7DNL914, Middle Eastern men, okay? Those are not men, they're just males, okay? They're all sex offenders, and they're engaging in a sex offense together as a government act, okay? It's state action. That's why fake sun is over the parking lot now, but the entity's keeping the fake sun over the Ontario Town Square. That's not going to be seen through the windshield of any vehicle at the Ontario Village Shopping Center, or seen underneath the covered structure, creating any sunlight underneath it's specifically where Southwest Airlines is stalking me at the Ontario Town Square, where they're acting like they're taking off over the Ontario Town Square. And that's why you document that, because you're going to prosecute for terrorism by that airport. And you're going to, it's speaking to the entirety of that pattern of conduct while they're still stalking under a fake sun, and they're imbeciles engaging in that conduct with impunity. And that's also relevant to civil damages and charges, and with regard to terms in prison, because the entity that's engaging in this is going to be subject to federal prison. They're doing so. They commit sexual acts of violence with regard to psychologically torturing you in sexually perverted manners, with preceding, which is what precedes the loss of life of the target individual, and it's murder, because it's not an accident. It's not a unfortunate occurrence. It's while the entity's been obsessively stalking you the whole time, until they're engaging in what is accomplishing that result, which is what Jason Isaac Fields and Tracy Banks and Eric Spencer, the entity that's defaming my character, trying to gang stalk me and steal my property at the same time. Those psychopaths are going to federal prison, and they are, with regard to evidence of the entity conspiring murder. But you have that even if there was not direct evidence proving that they've been conspiring my murder. When you're gang stalking with the police department, that is evidence that you're conspiring to commit murder as an entity. All right, the entity, it's reasonably foreseeable that there will be a loss of life when police are engaged in criminal surveillance, stalking someone, monitoring them as demons, kidnapping them, making up charges even. You're desperate to engage in what is harassing and getting your paws on that target individual so that you can affect them, so that you can harass them, so that you can have an encounter with them. And they're bearing weapons and exercising authority that they don't have. That's reasonably committed in furtherance of committing what is murder. All right, that's loss of life, homicide with intent. Okay, because the police have no business stalking, and that's all the Ontario police are doing. License 8HLZ089, 6UHK651, and that's what the people of the state are doing as well with the police. This is an entity that's absolutely acting in furtherance of murder. And the criminal pattern of conduct proves that. And the entity is gang stalking with the existence of evidence already in the custody of the federal government. You have direct evidence that this entity has engaged in attempted murder and has engaged in what is conspiring murder. And this is why and how, and they were going to engage in it by gang stalking. It is currently 8:49 a.m. This is P.O.C. All right, 23776Z3 at 8:51 a.m. That's FedEx. This is a demon operating that FedEx vehicle, driving around the intersection of Bonita and Vesta to molest me with impossible light. Doing so, FedEx is heavily documented, engaged in targeting me with such sexually perverted and psychopathic manners. As a corrupt business that's engaged in surveillance, you need to know that FedEx is monitoring American citizens. They also use commercial planes to psychologically torture and to engage in what is stalking me around from place to place. And those are demons that you need to know that FedEx is hiring. FedEx is a corrupt business that is in service of Satan, and that's why FedEx and all of its functions is engaged in criminal surveillance. And they're also doing this abroad in other countries. I'm exposing what they're doing in the United States of America. That was a sex offender molesting me with impossible light while stalking in the path, driving onto from Bonita onto Vesta as I am walking onto Vesta, stalking. Okay, and totally focused on me, and that's all of their focus while you are keeping a fake sun as I'm walking through the neighborhood. Everybody in the neighborhood, it's focused on me. Okay, that's P.O.C. And that's psychopathic stalking by FedEx, a third-party company. Okay, that's the personification of Satan, and Satan is just operating under the name of FedEx, the company, and those are demon-possessed third parties that are working for FedEx targeting me. It's 8:52 a.m. P.O.C. One 728-466. Good morning. This is Erica. That's the same terrorist, the Ontario International Airport, and that is the terrorist Southwest Airlines as well, stalking while the fake sun moves to be over the Ontario Town Square, where it would have been in the first place if Stater Brothers in the Ontario Village and the sex offenders that I documented were not engaged in gang stalking, if I were not being targeted. Okay, that is the fake sun moved east to be over the Ontario Town Square, where it is not, and it is not possibly at the same time remaining perpetually throughout the city of Ontario on every street, over every parking lot, over my head everywhere that I'm going, especially when I engage in the anomaly of going to the Stater Brothers venue, where the entity is keeping that fake sun and then remaining over me, while sex offenders like FedEx are stalking in the path as I'm walking, and a population is stalking me en route to this venue. It's 9:15 a.m. The Ontario International Airport Southwest is stalking with simultaneity to my use of my device, meaning as I'm looking for the same venue stalking under the fake sun setting at the same location where it was this morning at 8:42 a.m. This is when the entity sounds plane activity. Southwest Airlines is engaged in federal stalking, that is. The Ontario International Airport is engaged in federal stalking, criminal surveillance. P.O.C. And so is the Ontario Police Department, sounding helicopter at 9:16 a.m. Just like they were, by the way, like I documented last night and put that were on the X. You could see that. This is the entity, the City of Ontario, that's stalking as an airport, stalking as a police department, doing so in furtherance of murder. This is why Tracy Banks is going to federal prison. This is why Jason Isaac Fields is going to federal prison. This is why Eric Corey Spencer is going to federal prison. This is why the kidnappers of the Ontario police are going to prison. This is why. They're doing so also, remember, while they're stalking, engaging in what is a program of psychological torture, they intentionally and maliciously engaged in defaming my character. Oh, they're going to prison. They're going to prison for that. That's targeting American citizens. And it's necessitating changing state and federal laws as well regarding mental illness and regarding the absence of authority for any government, since it is engaged in surveillance. This is changing the landscape to unilaterally affect the liberty and property rights of an American citizen just because the government says that you're mentally ill. That's insufficient. And so are the bases upon establishing mental illness when the entities engaged in psychological torture and targeting, like the City of Ontario has, like the state of California has, like Tracy Banks and Jason Isaac Fields, the federal government has. This is P.O.C, helicopter activity at 9:16 a.m. While the City of Ontario, the terrorist, the Ontario International Airport, is engaged in terrorism, stalking. P.O.C. Ontario International Airport stalking, 9:20 a.m. under the fake sun at 224 Euclid Avenue. Flying right over south of my person where the fake sun is. No longer flying over the downtown Ontario luxury apartments. Migrating south as my person migrates south, stalking, that's following from place to place and doing so while the people of the state are engaged in gang stalking with the City of Ontario. That's using planes and helicopters and not flying, again, like I stated, they're not flying anymore over that apartment complex, which would be north of my person, while the fake sun is also remaining south of my person. And the fake sun is also here. Remember, this is nothing other than gang stalking. That's why they're holding an event. And the events that are occurring in the middle of the afternoon are under the same fake sun at the same address, occurring under the same fake sun at the same address also in the evening. That's what I'm capturing on Saturday at the so-called food festival. Route 66 is a federal offense, while the entity's engaged in the criminal surveillance system in furtherance of murder, and they celebrate and call it a Route 66 event. Okay, this is the entity that's engaged in demonic activity right in front of your face as well, and it's criminal conduct. That's audible activity. This is what Frontier was monitoring my vagina with. It's significant when it's under the fake sun and an engineer light they're monitoring. This is P.O.C. It's 9:21 a.m. All right, the fake sun is over the top of my head on the specific side of the building where I'm located, as I am at the California Department of Motor Vehicles. That is another venue where I'm documenting the government, just like at the San Bernardino County Transitional Assistance Department. That's San Bernardino County. That's another government facilitating venue, a state facilitating venue. That's another address, a location, another government building engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, gang stalking, which is speaking to not only targeting, but targeting that's identified in a demonic environment, which is facilitated by those that are working at that government building, that's speaking to demons that are working for San Bernardino County, demons that are working for the California Department of Motor Vehicles, engaged in criminal activity, psychopaths that are malicious, engaging in that unspoken system of surveillance while they're asking you things like, what's your name and social security number, using communication devices to give and provide an exchange
exchange that information while the people of the state are in that venue monitoring together. This is again San Bernardino Transitional Assistance at 1627 East Holt, where I'm documenting the fake sun in the morning and in the afternoon over me at both instances. And for that duration of time, the sun would not be present to capture both of those instances. That's the state that's engaged in what is in all functions at every level of government, surveillance, in furtherance of murder, gang stalking underway by those venues associated with this, identifying the government at the county office, at the Department of Motor Vehicles. And I've documented very thoroughly the Department of Motor Vehicles gang stalking under the fake sun, the entity engaging what is trying to cover up that fake sun, but you can see it. It's over the top of my head while I'm in the vehicle parked outside of the DMV, located at 8629 Hellman Avenue in Rancho Cucamonga, California. They are engaged in targeting me with San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, which I documented in 2022, and that documentation is going to be published onto the YouTube channel, but it is currently available on my website right now at thisisthepoc.wordpress.com. And the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, that is a documented kidnapper. That's Shannon Dykes, that's engaged in domestic terrorism and is repeatedly engaged in a series of kidnappings with the intent to obstruct justice with this entity, including with the OVITT Family Community Library, by the way, engaging in what is criminal defamation as the department, and also in concert with the Ontario Police Department and in concert with the people of the state who engage in malicious allegations while they're gang stalking, doing so pursuant to criminal summoning with the Ontario Police, who are gang stalking, doing so while they are engaged in kidnapping, taking me to the facilitating venue of West Valley Detention Center, where I've also shown you the fake sun over the top of my head, where the West Valley Detention Center, which is a facilitating venue of the government, that's the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, who are gang stalking, and they've engaged in what is also evidence of targeting when they've patently absurd efforts of defaming my character. And that is also how you know that they're gang stalking as well, because they went to the extent to try to defame me, which is facilitating the ongoing intent to commit murder and kidnapping. That's why Ontario Police and San Bernardino County Sheriff, and as I've documented, even the people of the state, while you have things like a secret conservatorship that Tracy Banks has, and you have things like a fraudulent marriage to me on paper that I know nothing about, and there also is a property in the universe that nobody ever told me about, the government that's having hearings that I'm not invited to, that I haven't been told about. This is all of that is coexisting, and it's relevant to what is gang stalking, proof of it, beyond what the P.O.C. proves. This is ongoing corroborating evidence, and this is why you have Shannon Dykes defaming my character, Mike Lorenz defaming my character, Tracy Banks, Jason Isaac Fields defaming my character, the people of the state, Sean Thrasher defaming my character, while they're engaged in what is, as an entity, targeting demons in doing so in a demonic environment, one that is irreconcilable and mutually exclusive, because while the sun's over the top of my head at 8629 Hellman Avenue, Rancho Cucamonga, California, 91730, there is no sun that is going to be over the OVITT Family Community Library, which is what I'm documenting on a daily basis. That's why I'm able to capture it at 10 o'clock in the morning while the Ontario Police are flying circles over my head, okay? And the demons are pacing all around. What are they standing under when they're waiting for the library doors to open? They're engaged in surveillance, and they run in to all maintain their position and engineer light, monitoring at the entrance until closure, where I'm documenting at 6:40 in the evening the fake sun that's at the same outside of the same entrance. 1 o'clock in the afternoon over the same entrance. 2:44 in the afternoon over the same entrance. 4:10 in the afternoon over the same entrance, over me at the same entrance. 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening, 6:03 p.m. where the Ontario Police are flying circles over me while they are triggered, while I refer and remind you about pedophilia that department is engaged in, the people of the state who are gang stalking are engaged in. And at this same entrance where I'm capturing the fake sun, all of a sudden it's over the DMV in Rancho Cucamonga. How was that? In a natural environment, I mean, while it's remaining stationary. And while that's very damning evidence to prosecute terrorism
at the OVITT Family Community Library, it is evidence speaking to a statewide pattern of conduct, while it is then over what is also legally relevant. That's the California Department of Motor Vehicles that has the sun not just over that venue, which is impossible, but it's over me at that venue. And then the entity is following with the fake sun, speaking to a population stalking and being proven to be engaged in stalking and being proven as demon-possessed people who are stalking one specific person who they know and who they know is engaging things like, again, pertaining to my genitalia in the bathroom of the Stater Brothers that has a fake sun over me at that parking lot during the 8 a.m. hour. That's the entity that's engaged in gang stalking, okay? And that includes California Department of Motor Vehicles, which Gavin Newsom is very much informed about, okay? He is engaged in terrorism. As you hear psychopaths closing the door incessantly, those are psychopaths. It's a means of audible activity. They're doing so while they have mental illness proven through the impossible light activity of their multiple shadows while they repeatedly close a door to monitor. Psychos, okay? And that's speaking to what is pacing. There's psychopaths that are pacing back and forth, opening and closing the door, and they're doing so pursuant to what is monitoring, and they're all doing it under a fake sun that departed from being over this venue because there's only one sun. So no defendant that's going to prison for kidnapping me is going to state, nor can they, and nor will NASA provide them any evidence pertaining to science, also common sense and logic, which also is not going to be excluded from the doors of the tribunal, that the sun is over the OVITT Family Community Library while it's over what is my head at the Rancho Cucamonga DMV. And it's nothing other than the pattern of conduct that this venue, the OVITT Family Community Library, has been engaged in. And as impossible as the mutual documentation of the same time the fake sun remaining over the entrance as it is over me, the Rancho Cucamonga DMV, which I went to today and have not been going to, and it's not over the DMV while it's over the entrance like I captured now. It's mutually exclusive. This is speaking to what is also impossible, that it is sunlight while my shadow is appearing on the walls inside of this venue where they're using what is a means of noise in that engineer light. These are demons that are monitoring, and they're monitoring while they're being paid by their employer, the City of Ontario. And they're monitoring what the demon-possessed that is sitting in the library engaging in surveillance. And they're engaging in that while they are engaged in sexual violence, like what I'm documenting at the Stater Brothers at 646 West Holt. And they're monitoring with the City of Ontario that's engaging in surveillance using commercial planes and helicopters. All right, this is P.O.C. It's 11:56 a.m., and you're not forgetting that the entity kept the fake sun over me when I went to Fontana, California, where, by the way, during the 11 a.m. hour, the ongoing pattern, which is speaking to what is impossible, and how that impossibility is speaking to what is a very precise pattern of conduct that is, again, so probative, so fully established that it's supernatural, and it's nothing that I could control or put there. Like the pattern of conduct is so concrete, the supernatural aspect of that pattern of conduct is speaking to what is beyond a reasonable doubt with regard to the government stalking and monitoring, targeting. And that is also added by the Sierra Avenue, Fontana Lewis Library, 8437 Sierra Avenue, where the Fontana Lewis Library has the fake sun over the top of my head, over the roof of that library as I'm at the entrance during the 11 a.m. hour. And it's also over me at the DMV today in Rancho Cucamonga. And it's also over me while I'm giving you and juxtaposing that with what the demons inside of the OVITT Family Community Library are engaging in, slamming doors like psychopaths, pacing incessantly, and they like to do that, again, pertaining to what is genitalia in private spaces where no sane and where no person that's not a pervert is engaged in what is monitoring. But that's what all of them inside of this building are. And those that engage in kidnapping are going to federal prison. All right, they're engaged in ongoing psychopathic pacing as patrons, stalking, and also watching the evidence progress online. And their knowledge, pursuant to that body of evidence, pursuant to their ongoing gang stalking, is relevant to federal prison. Okay, for example, look at the entity that's kidnapping on June 16, 2022, because on surveillance cameras at OVITT Family Community Library, you will see those demons gang stalking, and they're aware of all the evidence that's being documented on a daily basis and everything that's being published online, and they are engaging in that ongoing terrorism and invested in what is the demise of the target individual that they kidnap with the Ontario Police Department. And that's also relevant to how many years they're getting in federal prison. Both those demons that are pacing in and out of the entrance, I took pictures of them. They are present, still gang stalking, monitoring me, communicating an unlawful threat, acting with impunity, and domestic terrorists like that are going to prison. All right, they are doing so with the OVITT Family Community Library, gang stalking me on a daily basis as though you're going to engage in terrorism and threaten that American citizen, just like demons wearing police uniforms conspicuously stalking as though you're going to engage in terrorism and threaten that American citizen in their face. That's what the demon-possessed are doing at the OVITT Family Community Library, and they know very well about what is documented, and they don't have to admit what they know, but they know very well, and you're listening to me right now, or you're sitting around obsessing inside of the library. Listen up, demons, because you're going to prison. You're going to federal prison. All right, you want to sit around and watch? Everybody else is going to watch you go to federal prison for gang stalking. What is your federal prosecutor that documented you ongoing targeting, because that's all you're doing inside of the establishment that is facilitating your criminal activity. And if you think that it's a game, you're going to watch yourself go from checking out books to sitting in a federal cell for engaging in kidnapping with the Ontario police, who are providing evidence against you every single day, and I mean every day. You were engaged in gang stalking on June 16, 2022, when you engaged in kidnapping, walking under that fake sun in and out of the library. It's sitting on the record. Your unattractive images are very clear for everybody to see, and you're going to prison for kidnapping, monitoring, and thinking that it's funny as well. That's relevant to your your mental assessment. All right, it's currently 11:59 a.m. That's ongoing facilitation of harassment and impunity relevant to obstruction of justice, and the terrorists that derive pleasure from targeting American citizens and also derive pleasure from sexually violating them, and doing so up until the day that they are physically restrained, and it's not being forgotten in your federal prosecution. This is P.O.C. 11:47 p.m. Ontario police are on traffic cameras at Holt Boulevard and Euclid Avenue, traveling in the direction south. It's a black and white SUV, and they are molesting me with light activity while they're crossing path, gang stalking, engaging in the same sex offense that the demon-possessed people of the state that don't drive Ontario police vehicles engage in, and those demons are just driving vehicles associated with the terrorist organization Ontario Police that's being disbanded. They're doing so pursuant to specific knowledge of who I am. They're doing so pursuant to the unlawful intent to harass, terrorize, and sexually violate and psychologically torture while they are anticipating being disbanded, while they are hostile to everything that they're keeping under surveillance as it's uploaded about that agency and about the state of California, while it is gang stalking and is currently surrounded with evidence of gang stalking with the people of the state who are engaging in criminal activity with that agency. Again, the traffic cameras at Holt and Euclid Avenue is relevant to criminal presence. Everything that the entity is doing, the traffic cameras throughout the city are capturing criminal activity while I'm surrounded by the entity that's gang stalking me, because the government maintains no warrant at all or probable cause, no lawful basis to engage in a secret system of surveillance, which is exactly what the entire city of Ontario, the state of California, is engaged in. And the Ontario Police, Mike LORENZ, is committing a sex offense by touching my person while stalking me and monitoring me. Doing so, this demon is driving on Euclid and blinds me with light while I'm sitting on the sidewalk. I'm on the bench on the sidewalk. And this is what the demons are doing while they're driving on D Street and turning. I captured in video. They're turning onto Euclid Avenue, from across the street, molesting me with impossible light activity. That's the demon-possessed Ontario Police Department just commit the same thing. Okay. The only difference. What's the difference? Demons that sit inside of police vehicles and demons that sit inside of Hondas and Toyotas and Camrys or whatever it is that they have. There's no difference with regard to anything other than the status of that demon-possessed population. Okay? And this is also based on hostility, because the Ontario police are conspiring murder, and they're hostile psychopaths and sex offenders and kidnappers who are angry because they've been exposed for conspiring my murder. Let's not forget that. They're being disbanded. They are. And they're all over X, gang stalking me today on another day, which is evidence against everybody that committed kidnapping with that agency, because they're all going to federal prison as well. Okay? It is currently 11:49 p.m. This is P.O.C.